Welcome to another SonicLAB, and that rather dreamy tone is the sound of the Sequential Take 5, which is their new analog-based polysynth, 5 voices. I say analog-based because it's not all analog, but what they've done is they've, as people kind of often banging on about VCOs are great, VCOs are great, they've gone, right, okay, you can have VCOs. So the oscillators in here are actually VCOs, 2 per voice. And so is the filter. The filter is fully VCO, obviously 1 per voice as well. So we've got at the heart of it the kind of analog goodness. The rest is DSP or digital, and obviously that allows us to have memories and all those things. It's got calibration and whatnot built in. In terms of the form factor, we've got this kind of short 44 key keybed with quite a nice feel, plus aftertouch, mono aftertouch. In terms of construction, feels kind of nice. It's good, solid, small, like I say, people who have already had this, because I will say you will have probably seen people evaluating this already, and that's because they bought it. The review units have only just come out because obviously supply is a little less than ideal at the moment, although Sequential quite often do send things out to reviewers later. They prioritise customers first, which I guess is a good thing, right? Just not for me. Solid metal construction. Knobs all have a really kind of quite a nice firm feel. Some of them are rotary encoders, like the BPM and these two here, which we can get to various settings. There's not an awful lot of settings in here. We've got an arpeggiator, we've got a simple step sequencer, 2 effects, which are very much like the sort of standard sequential effects, a pair of envelopes, which are normal to filter and amplitude, but we can route them slightly differently if we want to. Have to come out of global for that. Do like the kind of Pro 3 style large filter knob. This filter, in fact, is based on the Prophet 5 filter, or the Prophet filter with resonance and drive. And obviously we've got the mod and the pitch wheel are mounted up here to kind of create a smaller and more compact unit. And actually it's quite a nice size. I mean, I thought I might feel that there was a little less keyboard to be going on with, but with only 5 voices, it's not that much of a hardship. And also there's a little superpower here, which is if I build up, let's grab another sound here. But the superpower is the bottom octave and a half, we can actually transpose individually from the rest of the keyboard. Let's take the arpeggiator out. There we go, let's have this one. We can transpose that 2 octaves below, so it gives us a little bit extra spread. Not a feature I've seen before, and actually kind of quite an interesting idea. So in terms of memory, we've got 128, 2 banks of 128. There's a factory and a user. Can't overwrite the factory. The user one seems a little bit light, but that's okay, I guess. We've also got a dedicated overdrive circuit here, which is on the output, and that's actually kind of quite nice. It adds a sort of warmth and saturation and a bit more kind of angriness, because the sequential sound isn't really kind of massively aggressive, which has been the feature of a lot of modern synthesizers, kind of adding all this aggression, but we've got the ability to add that with this overdrive circuit as well as being able to drive the filter, which is a more subtle way of affecting the way the resonance behaves, and you get a bit more smudge and a bit of a warmer bottom end. So anyway, let's take a look. Let's listen to those VCOs and that VCF, see what they're all about. Okay, so I'm now filming this during the Storm Eustace, so you might hear a bit of banging and crunching. It's not the synth, it's just the windows. So let's start off with a default patch. Now you can get to this either by going into program mode, or sorry, global mode, and going to 28 and creating a basic program, or you can come out of there and you can press down and -2. That gives us a basic program as well. So either way, nice shortcut to know. So that gives us a regular saw wave on oscillator 1. So we go through sine, through saw, to square, and then pulse mod. Through 0 as well, and this is a modulatable parameter. Only monophonically, unfortunately. I did check that, but this is one thing that you can see. So if we see right here, oh, you could see probably up there, there's a little P by the source, which is a polyphonic. But if I switch it to that, it says monophonic and polyphonic, but that's not strictly true. If I went to filter, it would be polyphonic, so that means one per voice. But unfortunately, for some reason, the oscillator shape is only monophonic. So we can't do any kind of fancy multiple moving waveform shapes. Bit of a shame. And I think this is a key as to what's going on with this, because there are some limitations, and I think the number of control voltage pathways is perhaps one of the things that has been reduced to keep it within the pricing structure that they want to hit. Plus or minus 7 semitones, plus or minus -2. We can also set, if we go into program, we can switch the key follow off. If I switch that on, we switch the key follow off on one of these oscillators, which is kind of handy. We can also sync between 1 and 2. Other than that, these are totally identical. So if we bring them both up, let's just go 2 saws, come out of here. And I'll create a little bit of detune. In terms of sonics, they sound pretty beefy. They're not like hugely thunderous, but they've got plenty of stuff there. There are some nice patches in here that show off as a great bass synthesizer as well as being for poly. I mean, because if you're playing poly, you don't really want everything to be massively hunky, and because obviously this is a regular low-pass filter, we can dial in a high-pass filter on one of the effects. We don't really want it to be too thick, I suppose, so I can kind of understand where they were going with this. We've also got linear FM between 2 and 1. Just switch that on here, and then we can dial that in. This then becomes the volume, but obviously it doesn't track. It's not like exponential, so you don't get perfect pitch all the way through, but it's nice to have. We've also got a unison mode as well, so if I bring that in, pressing and holding, if I just bring the overlay on, brings up the amount of voice. So if we go straight to 5, we can go to chord, we go to 5 voices, and then I will go into the program mode to set the detune. So start with none. Tasty. If we bring a whole load of oscillators in, we can get some fairly monster sort of super saw detune, but it's all in analog, which is kind of cool. Right, coming back to here, let's get onto the filter. We'll start with just a sawtooth. This is directly just a 4-pole resonant filter. Let's bring the level up a bit. Quarter resonance, half resonance, 3/4, full. We've actually also got this drive parameter, which helps sort of soften and smooth the cutoff. It's quite subtle, but it adds a nice bit of extra smudge. And the great thing is about this is it doesn't have bass roll-off, so we're not losing bottom end when we bring the resonance in, which is always, even on a polysynth, sometimes you can use it as a high-pass filter effect. It's nice to know, because it means that we can have those really massively resonant, bassy sounds. There's also a high-pass filter. If we were to use the effects, we've got effects here. I just dial in up to, I think that's high-pass there. There we go. Bring the mix right up. Doesn't go all the way up to full, then we've got resonance here. If we can combine it with these, we can create a sort of bandpass. I mean, this is obviously digital, whereas this is analog, and this would be 1, whereas this is 1 per voice, so there is a difference. Yes, if I take this out, it does do full resonance. Let's just bring the oscillators down. And how you access that, the tracking is, I believe it's in here, so let me just find this. I forget which one it is. Yeah, key to low path frequency. So if we go up to 127, that's full tracking. It's not bad actually over the lot, and as you can hear, cycling through the voices here, we've got a fairly constant and stable filter frequency, so the calibration is actually pretty good. It did take a little while to get the calibration going on this because into a new room, obviously being shipped. Once it had been done a few times, it kind of gets a feel. I guess it stores some local parameters internally. Once you calibrate a few times, it knows where to go roughly, and it's pretty stable. And I didn't find after the first few times that I was getting any issues. But be sure when you first switch it on and do it, you will have to calibrate a few times. And it's not there's anything wrong. That's just the way it's designed to work. Okay. We can also, we go to the mod sources, we can set mod oscillator 2 to the filter and modulate the filter with oscillator 2. Which gets that really nice, almost FM-y growl. The only thing I will say is you can only set the amount, it seems, by having the level up. So you will hear oscillator 2 at the same time as modulating the cutoff. Another nice little feature are the LFOs. While they're quite basic, I mean, they're identical in ways. Obviously, one is global and one is per voice, but they do go quite high up into audio rates. So I've got the sound here, which I've routed. You can actually set the destination outside the mod matrix to any of the parameters that you can route. And you can see I've got a P and a P by this, which is a poly LFO and a poly parameter. So let's just, I'll just make sure that I've got, we can set unison, we can have reset off, so there'll be free running. We have that cascading vibe, but then if we take this right up into as fast as it goes, we can get some really nice kind of audio rate mod. And adjusting that amount, we can get that kind of talking filter vibe. One thing to mention about the LFOs, again, is they are quite basic. I mean, what you see is what you get. We've got multiple waves here. We've got frequency amount. We can set the destination, but they can be clock synced. They don't have any fade in or any single cycle mode. In fact, if you wanted to do a fade in, you'd have to say in the mod slots, let's go here. I've got mod slot 4. I've got LFO2 going to cutoff, and then the next mod slot, mod 5, I've got the envelope depth, the depth of mod slot 4 going via the envelope, which would use an envelope and 2 mod slots to create the same thing. So I think this is just one of the limitations that we've got in terms of overall synthesis, and I thought I'd better mention it. Anyway, that's enough of facts and figures. Let's go through a few presets. There's some great presets in here. I don't know who's, but I think Houston Singletary's been doing a few. I think there's a bunch of people who've done presets for this. So let's take a look and a listen. This one is called Flyby Bass, and you can hear nice velocity responsiveness because we've got velocity response switches actually on the envelopes. Try another one. It's called Analog FM, and that is modulating oscillator 1 with oscillator 2. This is unison in chord mode. Listening to a few effects there. A really nice sync effect. This one was really nice, La Specchio. Again, using some FM. I like that. It's interesting. Using one of the oscillators in clock sync mode to create this kind of swung vibe. If I go to, let's go to the bank 8 because I've programmed some sounds in here and let's see what these sound like. Incidentally, I will be putting these patches available on our Patreon for those of you who support us on there, and I'll also probably do some multi-samples using Decent Sampler, so you can grab those there. So if you want to get involved, there's the URL below. This one, just a sort of interesting wonky sound. What's this guy? I haven't named any of these, they're all going to say basic programs. One thing that you will notice, and I'm not sure whether this can be fixed, is when you switch programs, if you've got a long release, it doesn't cut off the release, which might be problematic if you're trying to get quick program changes in. Cascading LFO here, modulating the octave. That's nice. This one is using the sequencer just to run a single note. And I thought I'd use that to just demonstrate what happens with the vintage knob, because the vintage knob introduces the notion of sort of slop. So if we just, the more we tighten it up, bring it up, you can hear there's variance on a per voice. And it kind of introduces this notion of analog slop. It doesn't go really, really far, but it does show you what can be achieved with that particular knob. This demonstrates the use of the high-pass filter in conjunction with the cutoff to create this kind of bandpass lead. Makes sense. This one is nice for our arpeggiator. And also aftertouch mapped to the reverb. Because in the mod matrix we can access a bunch of the effects parameters, which is actually kind of nice. Here's a kind of classic brass sound I'm sure you'll want to know. Yeah, does that kind of thing. So yeah, there's a couple of things we haven't looked at all yet, and one of those is the drive. The drive is actually kind of a nice vibe. So if I get a bass sound, and I just bring that up, we can add quite a lot of extra sort of grunge and grime here, and it's just really nice to be able to have it on a knob. I know that some other Dave Smith slash sequential models do this, and it's just actually quite a handy feature. And of course, the envelopes, need to discuss those as well. There is actually 2 envelopes on here, but they can be switched and configured in different ways. So here we have envelope routing, so we can set the envelope to be filter and amplitude, we can set it to be filter and amp, and then this could be an auxiliary envelope which we can use in the mod matrix, and then we can have filter and gate and have that. So that means now we have the gate is just doing the amplitude, and then this is doing the filter. And let's just have a listen to how snappy that can be. Pretty snappy. No looping, but we can delay the envelopes, which is in this setting here. If I go to basic programs, let's have a look. We've got oscillator key follow. Let me just find what number that is. While we're here, we may as well look. We've got separate glide for each oscillator fine frequency. Then we've got unison detune, reset, program volume, arc relatch. Let's have an envelope 1 delay, envelope 2 delay. So we can delay the beginning of the envelope, which is a nice feature, but no looping, sadly. This one's called Evolve Pad. Nice sound. I mean, it's a shame. This is when you sort of think, oh, wouldn't it be nice if there were more voices and we could really go polyphonic? But the point is this is a 5-voice and it's available at a fixed price, but it does sound nice. We've also got a sequencer in here. So if I just create a default basic program, this is really basic. We just go into record and we would just play. We've got rest and ties. So, and then it's literally just play. No parameter recording or any of that sort of thing. No real-time record. So it is really actually quite basic when it comes to sequencing. I guess nice to have, and that's stored per pattern, pattern stored per patch. So, you know, if you need it, it's there. You can clock it to an external MIDI clock. So, you know, it adds that functionality. So, onto the mod matrix. Right, the mod matrix, if I just bring this up, 16 slots. Again, if I do a basic program, let's just... Mod 1, pressure is generally sent to cut off mod wheel to LFO 1 amount, and then we can just basically set sources and destination as we see fit. And there are quite a lot of sources here. Voice spread was one, which is actually quite useful. You can route that to a number of destinations. So if we wanted to route that to oscillator octave by certain amounts. Oh, let's make that oscillator 1 octave. Kind of random pitch, or we could remote, let's go to oscillator shape. Interesting possibility. We've got granularity to individual envelope elements, but also something that's really nice is we can actually modulate these effects parameters, which I seem to remember when I first reviewed some of these new, I guess it would have been Dave Smith back then, we weren't able to access some of those. Now they're all baked in and we can bring the effects in as part of it. And speaking of the effects, I know I've been through some of the algorithms. They're okay, you know, they're not prime time, but they're the usual sequential style effects. They're no different or worse than, I think, any of the other currently available models. Here we go. Here's a bit of classic John Carpenter. Interesting, rose to whirly. Mod wheel kind of makes it feel more like a whirly or a fairly dull Rhodes. Again, sort of makes you want to play more polyphonically, but you can't. So the presets in here, while they're of a good standard, you can't really beat doing your own thing. I mean, that's the whole point of a subtractive synth. So is that, when we've only got 128 internal programs to use, that does feel a little bit stingy because it's just so easy to write your own patches and get going on. What I've got here is using the voice spread parameter, which is actually really nice. I'm using it on the panning, but I'm also using it on the LFO frequency. So each voice triggers a slightly different speed to the pitch. So you just get a bit more variance going on there. The Sequential Tape 5 is available now, priced at around 1,090 UK pounds. Other currencies will scroll below. And it is, while it's still a bit premium, it's actually a nice package, with the heart of it being analog in the way that it is, and all that other Sequential and David Smith synthesizer design now. It offers a pretty attractive package for someone who's looking for a compact polysynth. Or if you want a bit more synthesis capabilities with the same sort of flavour, although not fully analog oscillators, you might want to take a look at the Rev 2 as well. The 8 voice is only a few £100 more. Depends on your budget. Anyway, that was the Sequential Tape 5. I will now play out with a little bit more noodling. Thanks for watching. See you next time.